And we're recording. So welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us for our Service Fabric Community Q&A number 58. We have many from the team here today. We have Sukanya, Meng, Mike, Peter, many others from the team who will be sharing with us today. I think Meng has a really cool demo today. A quick reminder that today's call is being recorded, and afterwards we will share the recording both in the Azure Connection Programs community and on the YouTube channel. We'll monitor the chat for any questions or comments throughout the session, and if nothing else, Sukanya and Meng, go ahead and take it away.
Actually, I'll start off with saying welcome everyone. Mike, do you have like do you want to start off with the meeting with a little bit of intro about the demo that and the feature area that Ming's going to talk about?
Absolutely. So let me reset the context. So this is sort of a continuation from last community call, but if you weren't there or if you're just watching this recording from scratch, let me go ahead and share essentially the same kind of information as last time. So a little rehash for those that did watch it. Nothing special new here, but just to flash this on the screen again, set context. So in SFMC, so Service Fabric Managed Clusters, we recently launched some new preview features. And last month, what is time nowadays, right? We had a quick demo about the bring your own network scenario. So today, Mung is here to demo the bring your own load balancer scenario. So as I previously talked about, and just to briefly mention, it's a little more complicated because there are more options in this space, right? People have one load balancer, one bring two load balancers, sometimes want to split traffic, independently per node type, or sometimes want to have one load balancer going to multiple node types, etc. So Mung is here to provide a little more color and actually show this working. So hopefully that'll help folks, and that's kind of where I'll stop blabbing. So just helps set the stage. So Mung, if you want to go ahead and take it over. And
yeah, hello, you guys hear me okay?
Yep, mic check works.
Yes.
Let me share my screen.
Hey, maybe a little louder or closer to the mic.
A little louder, right? It's a little bit okay.
A little bit if you can.
Better, yes.
That was better, yeah.
Thank you.
And we can see.
Yeah, let me quickly adjust the microphone a little bit because I need to type stuff. So
Hey Meng, I muted you temporarily. We got some pretty loud static. Go ahead and unmute whenever you have things set up.
hello.
Sounds good.
There we go. Yep.
Is it better? Okay. Yeah. So okay. So sorry about that. So my name's Meng. I'm a developer from a Service Fabric team. In today's demo, I'm going to show basically the bring your own load balancer feature, as Mike mentioned. First, I want to show just really quick the documentation. This is the public documentation, and this is basically the sort of the setup that we're gonna we'll be able to do with this feature. So just a little bit of background. With Service Fabric Managed Cluster, when you create the cluster, you get a load balancer, you get a public IP, and you'll be able to access the cluster through this public IP, and you'll be able to also like run your applications and offer that for your customer to use. Then your customer will also be able to access the same application through the same public IP and load balancer. So this is all fun if you are relatively simple workload. But in some cases, the people want a more advanced, like customized setup on their load balancer. And then there's limited setting you can do with the default, like the default load balancer in the Service Fabric Managed Cluster. So some people actually would love to ability to be able to just do whatever they want on the load balancer and bring down public IP. So some of the features might include, for example, you want to set up additional outbound rules because your application is very heavily rely on outbound traffic. So you might run into snap port exhaustion issues that you need actually more public IP to like balance the load. Or you might want like different NAT rules because with the default setting, the NAT is only set for RDP port. But for any reason, you might want some other NAT rule to be set. For those type of things that you have to use this feature, which allows you to bring your own load balancer, which means you have your full customization on the load balancer and be able to do whatever that you want to configure on that. So yeah, this is basically the documentation. I'll basically be following this documentation to run this demo. Now let me first starting by actually creating a load balancer with all those features. So this is going to be the load balancer I'm going to create. If you are familiar with the load balance setting, you can take a quick look. It's relatively simple. Nothing too complex here. Public IP. This is my load balancer. In this case, I do have all bounded roles that being set up on this thing, and then I have.
I think we lost your audio a little bit in between. Can you just repeat the last part again, please?
Hello.
Yeah, that's better. We can hear you now.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I think the connectivity has been having issues. Particularly in the morning, I think maybe people starting getting to work and sometimes, yeah. So, okay, so basically this load balancer has a little bit of customization that you can do with the default load balancer. I have outbound role setting here. I have NAT roles. In this case, I'm still using the RDP port, but I use 10,000 instead of the default 50,000 port. And then, yeah, that's about it. So in this, so I'm gonna start deploying this load balancer. There's a little bit extra here which I can talk when the deployment starts to run. So let me just first by deploying this template by creating a new load balancer. Yeah, actually, before I get started, there's a little bit of extra step over here. First thing you need to do is to actually get the service principal ID of resource provider, the subscriber resource provider. This is highlighted in the documentation. The reason for this is this basically gives us permission to create a managed cluster using this load balancer. There's some complexity in how this thing works internally, but at a high level, you need to run this on each of the individual subscription that you have because the output for this might be different for each individual subscription. Yeah, get this. Yeah, you also have to create a yeah, if you're familiar with the role assignment, this might be easy to understand. But if you're not, this essentially create a role assignment on the load balancer, which gives service type RP permission to create a managed cluster using this load balancer. Yeah, so this is something that is you have to do beforehand. Role assignment ID has to be unique, has to be associated with each individual load balancer you have. So in this case, I create a unique one in here.
I mean, we're in and out of your audio, so just hold on for a second. Everyone, we apologize for the slight technical difficulties. So, Ming, do you want to try that again, please?
Hello?
Yeah. Sorry, we can hear you now. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, apologize for that. Yeah, okay, now the template is running. I'm creating this load balancer. Let's go ahead to the portal and take a look at the load balancer being created. Yeah, okay, it's probably just give it a few seconds. Yeah, okay. Now I just create this my customer load balancer 10. Right now is you can see I have one load balancing rules, which is port 80 that's been set up here. And I have outbound rules showing here and the NAT rules. It's just there's no VM attached, so it's kind of like it's empty. So next we're gonna actually create a cluster with this load balancer and show that now you can access the application running in the cluster using this load balancer. So to do that, we actually first need to grab the some of the information from the output of the previous deployment, which is basically some of the resource ID of the previous load balancer. Yeah, so next I'm going to deploy the cluster. So this is a template. We're going to go some of the detail. Let me actually start running this because deployment will take a while, and then we can go back and explain some of the pieces on this template. Essentially, what we need is this front-end configuration. This tells service type RP that for this particular node type, you want the VM to be placed or associated with this load balancer. Let me start running this, then we can kind of go through this with a little bit more detail because the deployment will take some time. Yeah, can you guys still hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, that's good. So yeah, so okay, so the deploy has started. Let me just go back and let's look at this template while the template running. So as I said, this is, if you are familiar with the subscriber managed cluster, you can already see this is the definition of the managed cluster itself. And then we have two node types, this being the primary one, and this being the secondary one. And for the secondary node type, we basically right now enable you to allow you to bring your own front-end configuration, which means the front-end and the load balancer as well as the public IP. Like I mentioned earlier, here the only thing you need to specify is to basically passing in the load balancer backend pool ID and the NAT pool ID in this front-end configuration section. This will basically tell the cluster to, hey, for the VM created for this node type, link them with this particular load balancer. And with this, you also have some additional capabilities. Some of them being, for example, you now be able to set up your own network security rules because now you have your own load balancer and you might be on the open ports specific to the workload running on this node type. And also to be able to do that, I also created a placement constraint on this node type. So the idea is that when I create a deployment application, I want to be able to say that, hey, for my application, run this application only on the node with this like color green, or you can name it anything you want. In this case, I'm going to say, hey, run them on the green nodes. So this is the placement. You might already be familiar with it. And the network roles also include, for example, RDP, because the entire basically network sort of, not an entire, but the load balancer is in your control. We don't really know what you configured or you want to open. So anything that you want to enable through the load balancer, you want to make sure that you have the required security rules set up in here as well. Otherwise, it won't be able to, you might have communication error. So in this case, in this particular case, I want to port 8000 because of the application I'm going to deploy. Use the port 8000, and also I want to be able to RDP into it. That's why I have the NAT pool set up and also have the RDP enabled. Yeah, so yeah, so this section is basically extra. For node types that use like customer front-end configurations. Yeah. To finish.
Your audio still is doing that off and on thing. Do a loose cable, maybe?
Hello?
I can hear you.
Yeah. Yeah, please let me know if there's any questions. We are basically just waiting for the deployment to complete.
Yeah, I believe Whit had a question online, and I'll just read it out. Or Whit, you can just unmute yourself and ask the question if you prefer doing that.
Mike responded already. But yeah, if whether or not holiday is available, sooner than later, or kind of as the managed whole thing is kind of done. But I guess the bits are already available, so great.
Sounds good. Feel free to anyone, if you have questions, just feel free to unmute and ask the question.
Yeah, one thing that to be noticed that you do have to use this latest API version in order to use this feature. It's basically July 1st preview and above, anything after that. Yeah, but in the earlier API version, those are not supported. Yeah, this is also being called in the documentation.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think I'm just gonna have to play around with it for a little bit. I'll have questions for you right after the call ends.
Yeah, sure. I think the VM are being created. If you look at the load balancer, you can see the net pulse is actually now showing up. There's some VM that being attached. It will just take a little bit longer. Yeah, you can see some showing up here. Yeah, it's being created. This means we are the service fabric node type is being created, and the VM is being sort of associated with this backend pool. Like when we checked earlier, there's nothing here, but now you can see there are 3 VMs being added in this backend load balancer backend pool, and they are just still yet to be created. Yeah, they are in creating.
I guess just to confirm, is all this already released as part of the last release, or is this coming up?
This is available right now.
Great.
Your audio is doing it again. I mean, I don't know if you, is there any way you can switch mics? I don't know if it's your saw or what.
Okay, so while we're waiting to, Ming, I'm kind of assuming you're still waiting for the thing to complete, right? I don't think it's completed yet.
Yes, I think we'll probably need a couple more minutes, maybe 3 or 5. Hello, you can still hear me okay, right?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yeah, sorry,
So
I have to
while
do
we're
that.
waiting, if you guys have questions or if you want to kind of understand something, just, as part of the demo, feel free to ask questions. Just walk us through any suggestions and feedback that you have. Love to hear your thoughts on it.
Well, I mean, I guess I haven't really looked through it all so much yet, so this may kind of be a dumb question, but I guess does this mean that everything on the network side can be pretty easily supported? Load balancers, NSGs. I mean, I guess obviously VNets.
In this case, it's actually still in the VNet, not VNet. This is actually only the front end. By front end, I mean that like the load balance and public key, whatever that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So that's the right side of that picture, not so much the left side.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mike, we actually want to fix this. This is subnet 1 and subnet 2. So when you put the node type with this on front configuration, it's created in its on subnet, but it's still within the same VNet, so they can still communicate with other nodes in the cluster.
Sure, but I guess the stuff, at least to the immediate left of the load balancer, the NSG pointing to the various services, that's not part of this.
That is part, but you kind of specify that through the node type, like is here, yeah.
Oh, great. Okay, yeah. Cool.
So basically, the NSG rules is not something you create like the load balancer as a resource and then associate. Instead, you still sort of set it up in the node type resource of the managed cluster.
Okay. Is all this also still, I guess, largely only deployable via ARM? So
yeah.
This isn't something built into a Fabric client that you can, dynamically do.
Yeah, this had to go through ARM. Yeah.
Okay.
So while we're waiting on the command to finish, I just kind of also got a feedback saying one of the links that we provide to kind of bring up any new topics that you'd like to see demos for or basically discussions for, that link seems to be broken, and we'll definitely fix that. We do apologize for that. We didn't notice that. But in the meanwhile, if you guys have any topics that you want to talk about or you want us to cover in one of these technical community calls, please feel free to let us know. Even during the call, just let us know so that we can, kind of figure out how to set that up for you guys. So any thoughts, just let us know.
So we were quite interested in the 8.1 release notes. it says support for liveness and readiness probes for non-container applications, but we weren't able to find any documentation for it. Is that on the way?
Yeah, we definitely have a backlog when it comes to documentation. It is something that we need to kind of update. But I will try to get more information before the next community call, and then we'll try to set up, if possible, a demo for it. But yeah, we definitely are running behind in terms of documentation. I agree with that. But that's good feedback. Thank you for letting us know. So Ming, while we're waiting for the command to finish, maybe you can walk us through what is expected once it finishes, so that when it does.
Yeah. Actually, let me give a try. Maybe it should be finishing up soon, I think, because this is the VM allow up, so the cluster should be yeah, it's connecting now. So I think the cluster is currently being bootstrapped, so its deployment hasn't completely finished, but we might be able to connect to it, I think. Yeah, okay, here you go. The cluster is actually already up. So I think this will take a little bit extra time to complete. But it looks like the cluster is already functioning. Okay, so let's just proceed to deploy some apps on the cluster, because although deployment is still running, the cluster you can see is up and pretty much functioning. Let me refresh this. Yeah, and you can see there are basically two node types. One is this asset, the other is the backend. Let me deploy some application to this cluster, and we can see how the customer front end works. So here you go. We are able to connect to the. So yeah, this is just some random app I created earlier for some random stuff. So now let's just deploy this application to cluster. And one thing to see is that for this particular app, I have the placement constraint that said, hey, color equals green. So this should mean that run this service or this application or this service only on the node that is being set to color as green. So yeah, if you're familiar with sub-fabric placement control, this is nothing new. It's just, hey, I want to limit the sort of the placement of this service, so it only runs on the nodes that is this BE nodes, which has the green color green. Yeah. All right. So the app has been deployed. And you can see this is the stateless application, and you can see it comes with this placement conferences color is green, and they only created on the BE node, which is the one that has its own front-end configuration. Now let's see. This application is on port 8000. Now let's see if we can actually access this application through the load balancer and public IP that we created initially. So this will go back to the yeah, so now instead of using this as demo 10, we can actually use this public IP, my customer load balancer 10, to access this service. So this is a web HTTP app, so I'm just going to use HTTP. And I configured to use the port 8000, so yeah. Actually, yeah, this actually returns OK, but you don't see the response because it's a web request. Yeah, here we go. You can see now we are actually accessing this service. This is the one we just deployed using not the cluster endpoint. It's actually using the my customer load balancer 10, this endpoint, and you are able to basically get the response back. In this case, the app doesn't have any data, so it just returns the 200 OK. But you can see this web call is going through and it's succeeding. Yeah. We also use configure the RDP access and NAT pool on this, so we should be able to also connect to it using the RDP using this load balancer. This load balancer. So let me copy this as well. Remember, we use the 10,000 instead of 50,000 as the NAT pool start port. So yeah, so here you go. Now we are able to connect. We just use the yeah, here we go. We are able to connect to the BE0, so which is basically this node type, this node, and it's the connecting bug. Yeah, so you can see that you are able to create your own load balancer and from the IP and configure the cluster in such a way so that some of the node types will be accessible through this front end. Yeah, so RDP is also working. Yeah. So one more thing to mention is that in a more complex setup, you can have multiple node types, each have their own front IPs, and each have their own network security rules. For the sake of time, I don't think we're going to demo it, but I can show a template like this briefly. Like you can see, this is separate template. The main difference is that I create one more node type, and this one I have a separate. Basically a third load balancer, which I can create and attach to it, and I can have my own rules for it. So this is, for example, assuming this might be a internet-facing or public-facing node type that runs service that is offered open to internet. You don't want the NAT to be enabled because you don't want any people to already do that, so you don't have NAT pool specified. However, you do have port 80 and port 3 opened so that you're able to offer HP and DPS website or web service to the public. So this is like a setup you can do, and you might just use the second type as some admin access, like backend admin access, which only limited to certain IP address to access, and then another one for public facing. So if you deploy this, what you for the sake of time, I'm going to demo this. You will be getting is basically this one. This I just deployed a little bit earlier. So you can see you will have two different node types, be and BF or whatever you want to call that. You can deploy different service on it, and you'll be able to access this service using port 80, 8000, and the other one using 80. And this one will be can be accessible through one additional load balancer that you're gonna create and attach to the node type BF. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. This is almost finished. Sorry about that. This will usually take a little bit longer. But yeah, that's it for the demo.
I'll just add on what you're saying there for the latter one. I think you talked about in the docs, but another common use case that's addressed is this sort of like multi-tenancy. So if someone, administrator or a company has one service type or cluster, multiple node types, and they only want certain customers access certain node types, that's another way where you can expose a front end per customer or something like that. So, and then the particular NSGs can block access between them, right? So,
yeah. Okay, I'm stop sharing now. Let us know if you have any questions. Yeah.
Thank you, Ming. This was awesome. Really appreciate it. And everyone, we apologize about some of the technical difficulty, but this was a really cool demo. Thank you for doing that, Ming. Any questions, everyone? Otherwise, we can have time back, and we do welcome your feedback. We do welcome inputs from you on topics. I will definitely make sure that the feedback link where you can provide comments and suggestions on what you want to see in the next subsequent meetings. I will fix that link and I'll send out an update. Sorry, Whit.
Is there an opportunity for general Q&A?
Yeah, please go right ahead.
Great. I saw someone, I guess, already beat me to it. Scrolled up a little bit.
Sorry, you had a question specific?
I guess Ivan beat me to it.
Okay, what was the question? Did I miss something? I do apologize. Okay, I have a couple of questions about the Service Fabric Nougat packages. When I create a project in VS, it refers to 1.7.6 version of that package, and it marked as unlisted on Nougat. Okay, is it safe to use it? I'll have to follow up on that. I don't know what this 1.7.6 version it's referring to. I will have to kind of check up and reply back offline. For quite a while, we saw in release notes that .NET Core packages will take dependency on .NET runtime 3.x. Do you have any updates on that? So we still have release notes very clearly marking out that .NET Core 2.1 is something that we no longer support. We are kind of going with the 3.x. I'm not very clear about your question. Is that going to be a minimum version? Is that your question, or did I misread your question? Ivan, just feel free to unmute and ask the question.
Yeah, so it was mostly about the ASP.NET Core dependencies. They still reference some ASP.NET Core 1.0 libraries, and I was wondering when we will get something more modern, more supported.
Oh, I see. So can you be specific in terms of where are you seeing a .NET Core 1.0 reference? That would actually help.
Yeah, sure.
So while Ivan, you're providing the detail, I'm going to move to the next question, which Whit has, which is, will SF have a release date support for Visual Studio 2022?
I assume that's what it's going to be called.
Yeah, no, that is correct. That's probably what it's going to be called. So officially, we cannot support anything until until Visual Studio 2022 is officially released. I do believe they have it planned for sometime end of this year. We are working with them to kind of come up with a plan on how to support it and what timeline. So I don't have an update right now, but hopefully by probably in the next couple of meetings, we should have a better update. Will reverse proxy via Yarp be limited only to managed clusters, or will this be available as a general service to all SF clusters? Any targeted timelines for release? Mike, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, they put an answer in Yammer for this. I don't know if you saw that with, but it'll be generally available. It's going to be an application model, so similar to Fabric Observer, and then we'll work on making it more integrated, a simple solution for the Azure Service Fabric Managed Cluster path to make that as easy as possible.
Great.
If that answers your question. So target timeline for release. So preview release, we are for Traefik 2.5, and the initial Yarp, it should be October. So we're on track for that. Just to repeat, like the Traefik solution will be pretty well baked and pretty, a lot of support. And I'll be sharing exactly what that support is, or probably a similar method to what I did that email out to a bunch of folks that are interested in this. So I'll just put out a call. If you're interested in these new reverse proxy solutions, please reach out to me, mike.craft@microsoft.com. I'm reaching out to folks who are asking some specific questions to get some more details. And then I'll be letting folks know as soon as we have bits available. Traefik will be first to release soon. And I'll just take the next question. So I already answered in chat, but original SF implementation of Yarp for SF excludes support for routing to partition services. It's excluded, but doesn't include it yet. So will the initial release of Yarp on SF, preview or not, support partitioned routing? I'm just reading because people can't see chat later. Support partitioned routing and stateless. So it'll basically be as you see it. So it will not initially release with that support. So Yarp will definitely be the more limited solution, I'll say, in regards to feature support, and we'll be more specific with that really soon, exactly what features it supports. But think mainly what you see already, stateless, basic HTTP, hopefully some basic supports for HTTPS. The Traefik solution will be the more fully baked one. So it'll support partition routing, stateful, stateless, and yada, yada. I don't want to go into all the details here, but I'll be sharing probably like a table or something to give you a good feature comparison of those two options here soon, very, very soon.
Great. Looking forward to
and then verbally, I'm hoping, not to get too far ahead, but I'm hoping to have a demo available, at least the Traefik solution, next community calls to give you something to look forward to.
Exciting. Cool. Thank you.
Yep.
And moving to the next one, thanks for sharing the dependency area where we're seeing the 1.2 dependency. Ivan, I will follow up on that. And the next one, there is a GitHub link. Give me 1 second. I do apologize. Let me quickly go through that. This is for iHost interface. Okay, so yeah, I'll follow up on that GitHub item. I don't know what the details are. I still have to go through the link. But if your question is about whether we are supporting, we're still continuing to support iHost, is that your question? I haven't read through the whole.
Yeah, it's the whole generic host question.
Oh, yeah. So we're still working out a few details on that, and as this is actually an exercise we're doing as part of the Visual Studio 2022 integration. So again, this is something that hopefully by next time around we should have a little bit more clarity into it, and I will definitely follow up on that. And next question.
Just the hot reload question. I don't remember if I asked this or not last month. If y'all support hot reload on single node dev clusters.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just still going through your question. I didn't quite get your question.
So I guess .NET 6, at least one of the big features I've read about is the whole hot reload thing. So I can be running a program, change something about it, and immediately see it say in a website or something. I don't have to, stop it, rebuild, redeploy, run the whole thing. So given that, the refresh on a single node is, a lot faster than a whole, service fabric deploy and run thing. I guess the ask would be, will you have a single node hot reload? So I can make a change, hit the little hot reload button, and immediately just see it in the app without having to stop the cluster and restart it.
That's a great question, Whit, and I honestly don't know the answer to that. I'm going to follow up on that as well. So I'm taking down notes. I have quite a few follow-up items, but this, as far as .NET 6.0 is concerned, this is again something that we're working out with the Visual Studio team, so that it's part of the 2022 release. We still don't know the timelines, but if this particular feature is part of the .NET 6.0, I'm going to follow up on it, and we'll hopefully have an answer.
At least for my side of things, support for that would be huge. Just because it is a real pain to develop websites on Service Fabric right now. So it's a lot easier to say build it, get the whole website working in a separate solution, and then add it in as a service later. Just because the turnaround time to see changes is so slow right now. So having that ability would grossly speed things up.
Got it. Yeah, that's great feedback. We'll definitely take it, and we'll work on that. And I honestly don't have an update right now. I do apologize.
All good. Thank you.
No problem. We're open for more questions.
Well, I guess to resurrect an older one too. I guess there's a long-standing ask, probably not as long as the generic host one, but another one for support for MS build instead of, I guess, the Service Fabric special approach. I guess is support for that anywhere on the backlog somewhere?
Not really. Actually, we haven't really. I know there are quite a few people who have been asking for things like that, but it's really not in our backlog right now. It's pretty low on that list, to be very honest. Is this something that blocks you? I want to understand what is the concern and like how critical is it?
It doesn't block me. It's more just one of those things. If I'm looking at moving using a build agent that isn't Azure DevOps or something, increasingly other CI/CD providers don't necessarily offer the same rich support that y'all do.
Yeah, no, I totally get that, and I totally understand that. But unfortunately, we really don't have the bandwidth to take up quite a few of the asks that come in, and this is kind of, we have to basically take all the asks, reprioritize them, and look at what we can kind of do each semester. So that's the way we do that, and most of the time, this one kind of falls to the bottom of the stack. And I totally understand where you're coming from. It does give you, a better user experience, if not for lack of a better term. That's the way I'd go. But yeah, sure. We don't have that in our backlog item right now. But I will take that feedback, and we'll see what we can work out. Any more questions? Otherwise, we can probably have 8 minutes back. Ivan, I did see you typing something, so I was wondering if, did you add another question?
Yeah, it's just another old GitHub issue that looks for updates.
Okay, got it. I will follow up on this one as well. I haven't gone through this in detail, so I will definitely look through it and follow up on it. I'm just scrolling through it, and it seems to have all the right folks on the thread anyway, but I will follow up on it. Thank you. Any more questions? final call. Okay. Ming, thank you for the awesome demo. Really apologize for everyone for, kind of some of the technical difficulties, but we really appreciate it, Ming. Thank you. And Mike, thank you for joining in. Peter just dropped out of the call. So Mike and Peter, thank you for joining in. And thank you for setting this up, Cesar. We'll look forward to seeing you all again for the next tech community call. Thank you for all your feedback. I have quite a few items that I will follow up on, and hopefully by next time around, we will have an update for you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Sounds great.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Take care.